All right, so welcome back. We're in our second segment of renewing the mind, and so kind of update what we talked about last, which was talked about body, soul, and spirit, getting born again. Now my spirit is alive, so now we're kind of in this process of allowing the spirit of who we are to take over us, take over our hearts, and so that our bodies, the reality is our bodies, they're just a vessel that respond to or manifest whatever is we're being controlled by inside. So this one I really want to kind of talk about, like, what does it take to renew your mind? And then we'll kind of journey into that. And anytime that I read this or think about this, it's Romans 12, there on verse 1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service or your reasonable worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. And so, we talk about it a lot here that we believe that you can't even begin to renew your mind without first healing the heart.
Right.
Yep. So when God started speaking to me about this, because the mind of the man is controlled by the heart of the man. So when God started speaking to me about this, I remember like doing counseling with people that had, drug problems, pornography problems, anger problems, like whatever the issue was, God began to speak to me that was really just a fruit of a root problem. And the root problem always laid within the heart of the man. So to be able to deliver them and see them free from what we would call the stronghold of the heart because of trauma or anything that may have happened to them as a child or whatever that is, now we understand that we're not going after the mind of the man or the woman. We're going after the heart of the man or the woman. And when I began to understand that, we started seeing like supernatural deliverances quicker and quicker and quicker because we were really going after the heart of who they are. So it's impossible, as Paul's talking here, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I can't transform my mind or renew my mind until I heal my heart. Because, forgive me, I don't remember where it's at in Proverbs, but it says above all things, like protect the heart because out of it flows every issue of life.
Yeah.
And so we know now that even psychologists, science is proving in the natural that we have a feeling before we actually have a thought, or our thought is driven from a feeling, if you will. So we now know that the mind is being controlled by the condition of the heart.
Yes.
And I think we can prove this because like we all know people that have broken hearts, right?
Yeah.
So when someone's got a broken heart, we hear it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes they lash out at us.
Right.
Sometimes they do things that wouldn't necessarily be them. Not only that, but they filter everything. You can say something, that out of the genuine of your heart, and they're filtering it through that broken heart. And so really to be able to help renew that mind, we've got to go after the heart, the issue that's there. So yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that like one thing I'm very like something that my dad's always, as well, like everything that we're saying, like the heart being the main focus is like even when I'm helping lead everybody into a place of worship, we're ushering in the presence of the Lord, something that like I know, like, sometimes I go into those sets and I'm like, like it's like, oh man, like today that was amazing, like everybody's like super pumped about it, and then sometimes I walk away from some and I'm like, man, that was just like that was good,
Right.
and I'm not saying that it's because God didn't do anything, but what it was is like it was something that I was dealing with that I was carrying into that, I was carrying in going into leading worship. And it can be like the simplest of like, I'm having a confliction with, a brother or sister, or I am having self-doubt, or
Right.
I'm like just things that are carnal, like our carnal mindset that we're still fighting, and we're still, because we're trying to renew our minds, we're trying to renew our hearts. And so one thing that, going into leading worship that I always have to do is I have to yield, like completely yield to the Father and say, God, I don't know what it is. I can't do this without you. I'm struggling today.
Right.
I am struggling with this thought, or I'm struggling with this in my life right now. And, and I know the repercussions of what's going to happen if I don't have a renewed mind or a renewed heart going into that worship set.
Right.
Because what is going to be released from my heart and my mind will be dispersed, and
That's
I'll be
good.
held accountable. I'll be held responsible for that,
Yeah.
And like there's just such a difference when we're we're worshiping from a place of complete like yieldedness to him,
Yeah.
and not anything that's of ourselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
No, that's
good.
do you have
really
anything
good.
to add to that?
Yeah, I keep hearing the word unhindered, like unhindered worship. There's nothing holding us back, and that I believe sets us up to receive, to pour out, to like, because I don't believe worship is not just about receiving, but it's giving.
Yeah.
Like worship is giving something. You're giving something to the Father.
It's an exchange.
There's an exchange
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Let me say this. It's heaven's currency.
Yeah.
Heaven's currency shows up in the room when people begin to pour out.
Yeah.
It shifts atmospheres. It changes things. It sets up a place where holiness can now come in and reign because the fear of man is dead.
Yeah.
It has
His
literally
glory
come down to a knee and said, no, like no more,
Yeah.
no more.
Yeah.
I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it sounds like. I don't care what, like, it's just for him.
Well, it's like Jesus is on top of the mountain with the lady at the well, right?
Yep.
Caught in adultery, not caught in adultery. Like he gives her a word of wisdom or
Yeah.
knowledge, and says, hey, you got 5 husbands.
Yep.
But he says these wonderful words that there's coming a time that you'll neither worship my Father here on this mountain or in the temple, but my Father will want worshipers who worship him in spirit
Yeah.
and in truth.
Yep.
And I think that's the whole thing, like what you guys are talking about. Like, if we come in with conflicts and stuff like that, like if we worship from that point, we're still worshiping from an unrenewed
Right.
mind, which
Yeah.
comes from some type of issue still in my heart,
Yes.
And it's not like we can't, but we've got to learn how to, like, if I look at my body, like mind, again, heart and spirit, how do we get down to the spirit of who I am, even though I am having issues in the heart of who I am?
Yeah.
Because it's like a double bonus, if you will, in worship when it comes. Like when the presence comes, it's almost medicine to be able to help heal that heart.
Yeah.
To be able, I mean, we're
Yes.
getting testimonies like Wendy said the other day, like 16 years of trauma gone in 16 seconds.
Yeah.
Under the presence,
Yes.
right? And so that's how when you start talking about how do I renew the mind, it can only come from the healing of the heart,
Yes.
which is the presence. It's the
Yes.
glory. And we know now from James, it's the word of God.
The word of God.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump here. This is gonna leap out of my spirit. But okay, Ephesians 6, when they're talking about the whole armor of God, and it says this: finally be strong. I'm reading the ESV. Finally be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. Right? Then it says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but we against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over the present darkness, against the spiritual forces of the evil in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened the belt of truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. Okay. And this is what stands out to me so much, is that I literally had to do this one time where I'm like, okay, Lord, I don't want to just renew my mind. And I know it's not going to take one time. and I have to constantly, we talked about this earlier, constantly renewing the mind. Well, I literally took something, like I felt like I was in the spirit and just taking that breastplate of righteousness, true righteousness, which we understand righteousness to be what?
Right. It's a state of him who is as he ought to be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. When I take that on and I put that on myself, it covers my what?
Yeah, my heart.
My heart.
Yeah.
See, when I put on the helmet of what?
Salvation.
Salvation now covers my mind.
Yeah.
Now, when I have the gospel shoes on, the gospel never stops.
Right.
It keeps going.
Yeah.
We think the gospel stops at just spending time with the Lord.
Yeah.
No, the gospel is always moving,
Right.
always going.
Yeah.
The belt of truth, it sustains us. It keeps us.
Yeah.
It brings us into this place where we can't just have helmet. We can't just have breastplate. We can't just have belt of truth one day.
Right.
We can't just put on the gospel shoes because we feel like it. We
Right.
can't just have the sword of the spirit. We have to have them all and all functioning together.
Right.
I think that's one of the biggest issues right now with Christians is they're walking around and they're spiritually streaking.
Yeah.
They're in this place where they just got the helmet of salvation on, but they're not even knowing how to understand because they don't understand righteousness.
Right.
So how do they protect their own heart if they don't even know how to put on the breastplates of righteousness? Because
Yeah.
they're still believing righteousness is right standing with God.
Right. And I think a lot of people, like you're saying though, a lot of people don't even understand that. I mean, we have a concept that I have a spirit,
Sure.
but not a concept and an understanding that I have to live from that spirit.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
No, it's so good.
Not just the gospel that protects the mind.
Yes.
It's the gospel that woke up my spirit.
Exactly.
And now we got to learn how to live from that.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that comes from that presence. It comes from glory through worship.
Yep.
It comes from revelation, right? In the last segment, we talked about revelation becomes our new reality. My new reality, I embody that.
Yes.
And so that's the full armor. I'm
Yes.
embodying all of it, not just bits and pieces of it. And then like I always say, again, I'm always thinking about three people, right? Mind, heart, and spirit. When revelation comes, revelation should always hit the spirit of who you are. And I think a lot of people, when they're sitting in church or they're reading, they receive revelation. It only hits the mind.
Yes.
And so
That's so true.
I think,
So
I
good.
think we get it backwards because we sing those songs or we talk about people like, we'll miss heaven within 17 inches from the heart. I never let it drop from the mind to the heart. And I think we get it backwards. Revelation doesn't travel up, down. It travels down, up. So what happens is when I get true revelation, it comes from the spirit of who I am. If not, it just becomes knowledge and it puffs up. Right? The Bible teaches us that. Like if you just get, it's not a revelation. It becomes information.
Information. Yep.
And information only allows you to be puffed up and prideful. Like how many people do you see can quote all the scriptures you want, but unfortunately their lives are miserable and they're very judgmental and all that because they're still trying to live from the carnal mind and the unregenerated, unhealed heart.
Yes.
So I always say when revelation comes, it hits the spirit, but the problem now is the journey to the mind.
To the mind.
Where's my first stop?
Wow.
My heart. Right. So when revelation hits my spirit, the whole goal is to allow that to renew my mind. But there's a place in between called the heart that has to be healed. And that's what the word of God does. That's what the presence, that's why when we're in the presence of God and like, I get this conviction, where's the conviction coming from? It's in the heart of who we are.
Yes.
And all of a sudden now the word, the presence, the glory brings what? Exposure
Exactly.
of the heart.
Yes.
And now it's like, if you'll let it, it'll heal your heart.
Yes.
And if you let it, once the heart begins to get healed, the mind follows
immediately,
naturally, organically. And that's where I think we have to begin to see, because we even have like psychology today and psychologists and counselors, they're trying from a very genuine heart, but they're only going after the mind of man.
Yes.
Because that's why you can only get temporary results. And a lot of the times they have to put you on medication because they're only going after the fruit, not the root.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's so good. So Psalms 147:3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds.
Yeah.
And I'm reminded of this because I've been in rooms where I've been in certain situations where there are these counselors or psychologists or these people, and it's like, and they, it's sad, but it's like they play this game, and I even struggle saying that, but it's like this cycle that they're seeing, and they look for these moments in this cycle to be able to see if they can break out of that. But what happens is the cycle just keeps going faster and faster and faster. And then it's like, there's no freedom in that.
Right.
So exactly what you're describing, that it's literally like they're supplementing the body. They're not even getting to the soul. They've never tapped into the soul because they don't understand the soul.
Yeah.
They're still thinking this and this.
Right.
They're not getting to that place of healing. And I think that's where, like, you want to see true transformation, allow it to hit the soul.
Yeah.
Allow him to renew the soul, renew the mind, renew the body. Like, everything will come into alignment.
Yeah.
And this is where that, like, it could feel like an adjustment. It could feel like this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it brings in that,
It's a healing.
exactly.
Right. It's like it's the healing medicine for everything. If we
Yes.
can learn how to let God, by the Spirit, by the Word, by worship, by His glory, by His presence, allow that exposure, so in the process is the healing of the heart,
Yes,
which again it'll renew the mind naturally.
absolutely.
Everything in the kingdom works naturally and organically.
That's it.
And so I think that's sums up this one, which is understanding to renew the mind. I've got to heal the heart.
Yep.
And that's amazing. Amazing.
So good.
Awesome, guys. Thank you
good.
so much.
So good.
Yeah.